welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review. This is Arvin. Arvin is from the Ones of Rogue Squadron. What's happening, guys? How are you doing? He said we could make this a public review, so that's great. He is a relatively free-to-play character. I know a lot of people looking at his roster going, there's no freaking way, triple cleanse and free to play. He has spent very minimal amounts of money in the game. You know, the $10 every 20-day packs, things like that. He's just been hyper focused on this team for a very long time, has built it up, and it has paid off in the long run for sure. But if you look, his General Kenobi's working on. He's got his bays, which he's still trying to buy shards for. He's only got it 3-star, just at barely the 3-star unlock, and he's working on Darth Nihilus, trying to get him up to 7 stars. But this triple cleanse team is no joke. If you happened to have been focused on these characters, it is paying off in dividends right now for your team. Now, he wants to know a few things for this thing. He wants to know some other arena teams that he can kind of play in there. He's working on his Princess Zodi team, and he's considering a Qui-Gon Jinn Zeta, and so he's wanting to know what Zeta maybe should he do in some ships. So we're going to go right into it, go into arena. He's currently using the triple cleanse, and of course there's a bunch of little substitutions you can do, like R2-D2 in the place of Darth Nihilus and things like that. We're not going to play with the existing team. We're going to completely shake it up and just make a couple of suggestions of other teams that he can do with the characters he has to replace this particular team if he wants to mix it up, and teams that will be good for even in the future. So the first is going to shock a lot of people, but is going to be a Darth Vader lead. Now, if you were to do Darth Vader as a leader in this particular team, you would want him to be your next Zeta. And if you decide that you don't want to use him in this particular team composition I'm suggesting, then you don't have to. However, you definitely need to Zeta him for the Rancor raid if you're going to try to do a lot of damage in the Rancor. It's the best way still to this day to do the most amount of damage in the Heroic Rancor. So this would be one of the 2 team comps, Darth Vader as a lead. It's also going to include, of course, your Darth Nihilus, which is your 3rd strongest character, Emperor Palpatine, and Boba Fett. So you've got Boba Fett. Also, the Darth Nihilus Boba Fett combo are extremely fun with the double ability block aspect, with, you know, ability block plus increasing cooldowns. It really stunts the other team. Baze is the auto taunter. Darth Vader puts up the dots. And of course, Emperor Palpatine, if you make him really fast, it's going to get lots of stuns and shocks off all the time. If you find Emperor Palpatine dying too much, and this is one of those things that people tell me all the time, oh, Emperor Palpatine keeps dying, you could place in your Kylo Ren. That's right, Kylo Ren in this team under Darth Vader is going to work out just fine for you. You have him Zeta'd already, so he's going to do a ridiculous amount of damage, and putting him in any team is a pretty much assurance of winning the battle. So this is definitely a viable team, Darth Vader. Now, the one character that I would suggest for a Darth Vader lead team in replace of Emperor Palpatine, so we're using Darth Vader, Baze as an auto taunter, Darth Nihilus, Boba Fett, and then that 5th slot I said Kylo Ren or Emperor Palpatine. My number 1 suggestion would actually be none other than Sith Assassin. So the only real side project I have for you, and you're not going to regret this at all for a Darth Vader lead or a Sith team, or even for any of the fun that you're going to have in the future, is Sith Assassin. Sith Assassin is easily as good a character as Emperor Palpatine in the right compositions, and with her stun and with her ability to do damage directly to health, with her ability to stealth and keep herself stealth. I've had her, you know, she hits for a ridiculous amount of damage on her special, you know, over 25k. This is just one of those amazing characters. Now, with her on this team instead of Emperor Palpatine, what she will do is she's going to speed your team up significantly, because I suggested Darth Nihilus and Darth Vader, so she is going to make them both much faster, both of which are naturally not as fast as you'd like an arena team to be, and you want to focus on more damage with them, so because they are your damage, they're part of your damage dealers in that team. So with her, your idea is to just put as fast a speed mods as you can on her, make her ridiculously fast, you know, anywhere from 220 to 270, and then she goes first, and she will assure that your team goes first, and because of that, you're going to be able to put those damage over times over people's head, and that'll never go away. So Darth Vader is a totally legit team you can use in arena. It's fun, and with all of the teams changing, and with, you know, Jedi and now the wedge leads coming back into play, and now you've got all the Maul leads and everything, it's just, this is one more variant you can use. Now the next team I'm going to suggest for arena comes by way of Jedi, and you said you thought about doing Qui-Gon Jinn Zeta, and if you decide to go the other route and do Qui-Gon Jinn Zeta, then this is the other arena team I would suggest. Qui-Gon Jinn lead with the General Kenobi and R2-D2. Those three together are absolutely crazy. Now you have Jedi Knight Anakin and Grandmaster Yoda as well in this team you could use, but you will have to gear them up a little bit at gear 8 and gear 9 respectively. Anakin and Yoda, you're going to need to gear them up, but the Jedi teams that are really, really fast, where every character is over 200 and the Yoda is over 250, which is honestly not as difficult as people think it is because Yoda is already a fast character, is a really, really good and very defensible team. There's only a couple of teams that can chew right through it fast, and those few teams are super indefensible themselves. So it is one of the more defensible teams if you're looking for a team that doesn't drop much. It's about as defensible as a triple cleanse team through my own experience on my own leaderboard. The individuals on my leaderboard have just as hard a time going against my Jedi team as they do my triple cleanse team. So Qui-Gon Jinn, if you do the Zeta, General Kenobi, Yoda make really fast, Jedi Knight Anakin, and then you could also plant R2-D2 in here, as well as you could use this team not just for arena, but phase 1 of the heroic AAT. Now, I mentioned in that team you would want to have R2-D2, and I see you are gearing R2-D2. You have him 7 stars and gear 9, so continue with that. But I also have a side project. Finish your Rebels. Finish your Rebels. Finish your Rebels. You have Turret and Baze. You're working on R2, but finish Wedge and Biggs at a minimum. Those two guys were the original OP characters that were the first reworks that were like, what? They're still amazing. Wedge is even making a comeback in Arena, even without Biggs as a leader, because he can choose. He can be a really great damage dealer with 30% more offense for Rebels, and in the right composition, he can just create a team that shreds through even the Jedi team that I suggested. So definitely you want to make sure that you finish these two Rebels out, these Wedge and Biggs combos. They're awesome. That's for that. And so, yeah, Darth Vader or Qui-Gon Jinn, one of those two, Zeta them, and whichever one you do, go that direction for the team. It's going to be a little bit more work for your Yoda team, but it's going to be an amazing team that you can use also in Heroic. And then also for the Darth Vader-led team, if you decide to go that route, where I mentioned Darth Vader, if you decide to Zeta him, he and this team that I suggested, Boba Fett, Darth Nihilus, Emperor Palpatine, whatnot, Sith Assassin, you could use in the phase 2 of the Heroic, and you're already almost there for that team. Most of these characters are already maxed out. So my lean-to would be probably Darth Vader lead, so that way you can get Rancor use out of it, the phase 2 of the Heroic raid out of it until your clones are ready, and also be able to use this in Arena. But you also have the Qui-Gon Jinn. Let's move on to ships now. Now, you're doing really well in ships, and I see that you got a pretty good lineup, but my suggestion is you have Mace as your leader, but not a bunch of Galactic Republic ships. You have a few, so they're not going to be as synergistic as if you had all of them as Galactic Republic. And you know what? Having them all Galactic Republic isn't necessarily the best thing. It's a decent defensive team, but now with 4 times speed, you really can't be defensible. Switch to Admiral Akbar for sure. Put in Biggs as your tank, right? Of course, I already suggested to you that you finish gearing Biggs. By doing so, that's going to become one of your strongest ships as well, because the pilot makes up 65% of the ship's, strength in the game, and it brings in or imports their data, not directly but indirectly to the ship, and makes up 65% of the stats. So Biggs is definitely one of those characters that you want to use his ship. And then you could use the Imperial TIE Fighter, which you already have gear 10. And what's going to happen is the Imperial TIE Fighter is going to go first. It's going to target lock, and Biggs is going to taunt. And now you're set up with an auto taunt and target lock already on the opponents. And so you can really play and have fun. You have the TIE Advanced at almost 5 stars. And so I would highly recommend you continue to use him in your base lineup. And then also, you didn't know if Rex was really someone that should be in your initial lineup. I see why not, and this is why. He's not necessarily the fastest in the bunch, but he does do target lock on a basic, potentially, and he can buff the team, keeping them alive a little bit longer with one of his specials, you know, add that protection up in turn meter, which speeds the team up that's already fast. So he's not a bad mix, plus he's in your top 8. And then also I'd put Scimitar in there. If you have, you know, the Scimitar, definitely put that in there. So you've got the Scimitar, you've got, you know, Rex, the TIE Advanced, the Imperial TIE Fighter, and then you've got the TIE Advanced in Biggs. And so really excellent setup. Now with all of that, you're going to target lock the heck. You're going to paint the other side with target lock. And then if you lose Biggs right away through some really bad RNG, the first in from your backup would be Sunfac. He makes an excellent backup tank. Bring him in to replace Biggs. If Biggs does not die, which I find often is the case underneath Admiral Akbar, instead of bringing him in first, even though he'll be the first slotted ship in your lineup, bring in Slave 1, which you have, and Slave 1 will be able to do an AoE and just damage all 5 or 4 or however many target locked ships are on the other side with his AoE starting off. And I'm not even talking about the seismic charge, I'm talking about his first AoE, which is this one right here, the proton torpedoes. It's phenomenal. It's excellent. Bring it in, and since you have all these target locked characters like the Imperial TIE Fighter, TIE Advanced, Scimitar, and Rex, and Biggs, they all target lock potentially on their basics. You're going to get tons of target lock. He's going to come in second, or if you don't need Biggs replaced, he'll come in first as your backup. And then lastly, because you don't have a ton of characters overpowered, I would recommend bringing in Wedge. He's the heaviest damage dealer you have in the top 8 that you have. He can hit for 90,000, 100,000 on his special, and you just have to get him geared up, which I told you you need to gear him up. I said finish your Rebels. Now, you know you're finishing up your clones, and clones are going to naturally make your Rex even more powerful of a ship. So your question to me mostly was, am I doing the right thing with ships? You're doing a good job, but have Admiral Akbar instead of the Endurance. Use Biggs, Imperial TIE Fighter, TIE Advanced, Scimitar, Rex, with Sunfac as your #1 backup, Slave 1, and Wedge. I think you're going to climb significantly higher in the arena for ships by using this particular team. You'll chew through them much faster. But as far as your main team, if you want to try out that Darth Vader team, go for it. But you have to have a fast Sith Assassin. Remember that. So your Sith Assassin needs a ton of work. Make that the project of the month. Throw her in your favorites and get her gearing up. I know you got your clones in there right now and you're working on them. And so continue to work on them. And then finish Wedge and Biggs. You got them to gear 8. Don't quit now. It's so much investment to get them to gear 8. At that point, to let them go is a waste of everything you've put into them. So I hope this helps, Arvin. I hope this really gets you hyper focused. I hope this helps you out figure out what to do with ships and the Zeta as to who you want to do next. And I know you didn't need to hear about Ayla or B2 because you're working on Ayla Secure and B2, so we didn't mention them in this particular thing. I know a couple of people are wondering why I don't mention B2 more often in these previous last few reviews, but the reason for that is not everybody's focused on the same thing. So as always, Arvin, have yourself a wonderful afternoon. Keep your gaming on. Warrior out.